Hello, everyone. Today's title of our notes is going to be percent proportions. So this is going to be a different type of proportion that we have not seen yet. So to solve this proportion, we're going to use what we call the box method, where it's like the name, you draw a box. Okay, so we want it to look like this. Now, what does each part of the box mean? The first thing is the bottom right-hand corner will always have 100%. So every time I set up this type of proportion, we're going to have that 100 in the bottom right. Now, we always said, what is out of 100? If you said percent, you would be correct. Okay, so the reason this is called percent proportions is because we're dealing with percents. Okay, percents are always going to go above the 100 because, once again, percent is out of 100. In the top left corner, you'll have the part. So your part of the whole. And the bottom left, you'll have the whole. Now, there are some keywords to help us out with how do I know if it's a part? How do I know if it's a whole? For part, the keyword could be is. And for a whole, the keyword would be of. Now, obviously, if we're dealing with percent, it's going to say percent sign, or there's going to be a percent sign there. So that's going to be our key if we have percent. So please make sure and write this down. Pause the video and write it down. So now let's talk about how this box problem works and setting it up. So the first example is solving for a part. That means I'm going to set up my box. And remember, I'm going to put that 100 in the bottom right-hand corner every time. So solving for the part, what is 15%? Ooh, that's really bad. 15% of 25. So let's break this down. Well, I see percent, so I know percent has to go in the top right above 100. Then I see of 25. Well, that tells me 25 is the whole. What is? Well, we don't know what is, so that's going to be our unknown. That's our variable, the x. So now this is set up, and all I have to do is use our handy dandy butterfly method that we've been using this entire time. So I'm going to cross multiply 25 times 15, which gives me 375. So that's going to go underneath my division sign. Then I'm done with those. Whatever is left over, I divide by. So I'm going to divide by 100. And I would get for my final answer, x equals 3.75. Now, for the next two, I'm not going to solve it. I just want to practice setting it up. So, solving for percent. What percent of 200 is 10? Let's break this down. What percent? Well, we don't know, so I'm going to draw my box. What always goes on the bottom right? If you said 100, good job. And since it's asking what percent, that is our unknown, so the x is going to go above the 100. All right, then it says of 200. Well, that of 200 tells us that's the total amount, the whole. So that's going to go in the bottom left. is 10. Well, that's going to be our part. And that's how we set that up. Now for the next example, I want you to pause the video and try setting up the box on your own. Hopefully you pause the video and we're setting up our box. And I know 100 always goes in the bottom right-hand corner. So now I'm going to read my statement. 30 is 20% of what number? Well, the easiest thing for me to fill out right now is that percent. I automatically see a percent sign. I know where that needs to go. It needs to go above the 100. We also have of what number? Of what? Of what's our total? So that's where our variable is going to go in the whole spot. 30 is. That's our part. That's going to go in the top left. Hopefully you have this all written down. So the X can go in any part of the box except for the bottom right. All right, let's work through another example together. 45 is what percent of 50? Start off always when you see asking for percent or anything dealing with percent, draw your box, put 100 in bottom right hand corner. So let's break this down. 45 is, well, we don't know what 45 is, so that's going to be our part of 50. That is our whole. And what percent? That is unknown. So now we can fill out our box. And that's what our box should look like. All right, now that we have this all set up, we can go ahead and solve. So the first thing we're going to do is cross multiply. So remember, cross multiply the two numbers you have in the diagonal. 45 times 100 will give me 4,500. Then whatever is left over goes on the outside. And I can now divide. 50 cannot go into 45, but it can go into 459 times. Bring down my 0. 50 can go into 0 times. And I would get x equals 90%. Since we're dealing with percent, please make sure you put that percent sign or it will be counted wrong. All right, go ahead and try this problem on your own, and let's see how you do. So pause the video, and then we'll check our answer. All right, hopefully your work looks something like mine. I set up my box, and then I need to cross multiply, and then divide, and I should get x equals 42. So we would say 42 is 70% of 60. Now, it may not always be that easy. Sometimes, actually, I'd say about 95% of the time, you're going to have some sort of word problem. A candy company did a recent survey to determine various customers' favorite types of candy. The results of the survey are listed in the table below. What percent of customers prefer sour or chocolate candy? All right, so let's talk about this word problem. 95% of the time, you're probably going to have some sort of a word problem versus the other situation we just saw. So it says, a candy company did a recent survey to determine various customers' favorite types of candy. The results of the survey are listed in the table below. What percent of customers prefer sour or chocolate candy? Well, let's set this up like our previous problems. or we're going to have our part Actually, I'm going to write this off to the side. Our part, which is your is, our whole, which is your of, and your percent. So what percent? Well, I don't know the percent, so I know that is what I am looking for when I set up my box problem. Remember, 100 always goes in the bottom right. That X will go on top. Now, how do I figure out my whole? Well, looking at this, I'm going to have to add up all of these to figure out how many customers total I have. So when I do that and I add it all together, there are 50 customers total. So we would say the whole, okay, because it says percent of customers, 50 will go in the bottom left. Now it says prefer sour or chocolate. Well, that's a part of everything. So I need to focus on chocolate, which is 15, and sour, which is 17. And to figure out how many people total that is, I need to add together. And I get 32. So our part is 32. So sometimes you may have to read into the problem a little more to figure out your part and your whole. It may not just be given to you. Now this is all set up, I can go ahead and solve. So go ahead and pause the video and try solving on your own. All right, so if I wanted to cross multiply and divide, I should get x equals 64%. So we would say 64% of the customers prefer sour or chocolate candy. All right, this is a star example that has been tested before, so you may see something like this. Go ahead and pause the video, do this on your own, and we'll see how it matches up with my work. All right, as you're working through this, let's look at our setup. So it says yesterday 170 guests at a hotel called for room service and 255 guests did not call for room service. What percentage of guests at this hotel called for room service yesterday? So you may be wondering, looking at my box, where in the world did you get that 425 from? Well, the 170 is a part of the guess, and so is the 255. That's also a part because 175 called and 255 did not call. So I want to know the percentage of the total guess. Okay, so I have to add that 170 and 255 together. And when I do that, I get 425. So that's how I got my whole. Now it asked how many called for room service, so I'm only going to focus on that 170. All right, you can pause the video again and go through and solve this. All right, hopefully when you went through and solved this, you got C as your answer. All right, let's talk about what you need to do now. So if you head on to Google Classroom and go to classwork, you have an exit ticket to complete. So the percent proportion exit ticket. There are 5 problems that I need you to complete so I can check and see, did you watch the video and do you understand it? Something else we need to discuss is coming up pretty soon on November 9th and 10th, we are going to have our fall benchmark. Now, we're not going to have enough time in class to take a whole day in review, but we are going to be able to review some. So what I did in Google Classroom is I posted a benchmark review on a Google Doc. If you click on this, it'll make your own copy for you. Okay, there are lots of different topics that could possibly be on the test. All right, mainly from our first 2 units that we focused on. So think about our first 2 tests we just had, and that's probably what you're going to see on the benchmark. So I would suggest going through this maybe 2 to 3 questions per day, okay, up through the 6th. So that way we can kind of go over this in class, the 5th and the 6th. This would also be a great thing to work on during tutoring, so we can see how you would probably do on this. Okay, so yes, you need to complete this, and I would suggest making or going through and doing 2 to 3 problems a day. All right, if you have any questions, make sure you reach out to your teacher.